With top players from 3 continents contending for the crown, you know the competition must have been fierce. Today we take you through all the action at Ultimate Fighting Arena 2022. This week featured 2 major tournaments with too many storylines to cram into one video. So worry not if you're looking for the rundown of all the action from Port Priority 7. If that's you, slap that subscribe button and ring the bell because we'll be back with more on Tweak's big losers run and the rest of the action from the Pacific Northwest tomorrow. With that being said, let's go over today's focus, Paris, France, and the Ultimate Fighting Arena 2022. The latest in a series of European majors featuring contenders from Japan, Mexico, the United States, and of course all across Europe, fighting for the trophy. And who else to take it but the King of Europe, T. Well, while the title of Best of Europe is more in contention than it ever has been, the best player at European events might not even be a European. The people with the most European major wins, after all, are MK Leo with 4, T with now 3, and Gluttony with 3. In the post-lockdown era, T and Leo are tied with 3 apiece, with T taking home the last 2. UFA marks T's 6th major win, meaning he also has more major wins in Europe than he has in either Japan or North America. After cleanly sweeping through pools, it was British Fox player Streaks who brought T to the brink of defeat in a Game 5 set. But after defeating both Lancelot and Mr. R to get into top 8, something shifted. In his first match of top 8, T faced off against Sisqui, the person who sent him to losers at Ultimate Wanted 4. Games 2 and 3 were close, but the first game was some of the most dominant gameplay between 2 top players ever, and the set ultimately ended up 3-0 in T's favour. Afterwards, he beat his fellow countryman Hikaru 3-1, and France's golden boy Gluttony in a close 3-2 set by reverse 3-0ing him. And after his last few tournaments where the Kizzie fell by the wayside, this one serves as a reminder that it is still a force to be reckoned with, being the decisive factor in 2 out of 3 top 8 sets. Second place went to Gluttony, although he fell to losers before top 8 even started. Falling to Hikaru in one of the previous sets of the tournament, he tore through the losers bracket, beating MK Big Boss and Space, both in a clean 3-0 fashion. Next, he played Sisqui. In that set, Sisqui looked quite in control for Game 1, but Gluttony turned it up for the rest of the games, winning the set 3-1. Then, he finally got his first win on one of his bracket demons, Bloom Forever, in one of the most tense Game 5 sets of the tournament. He also got the run back on Hikaru, and while he did get beaten by T in Grand Finals, he did get something valuable from the loss. T has consistently been one of Gluttony's biggest bracket demons. T owned a lifetime head-to-head record of 4-0 before the tournament, and while the trend wasn't reversed yet, Game 1 certainly gave some hope for the future. Gluttony showed some amazing matchup and player knowledge, even forcing T to switch off of his patented Pac-Man. Perhaps there is finally light at the end of the tunnel, as Gluttony tries to free France from what has become T's iron rule. Third place went to Hikaru, an amazing Roy main with a fantastic Donkey Kong secondary. Or at least that's what we thought. On day 2, every game he won came courtesy of the Big Monkey. He started it by beating Leon 3-1. Then he got matched against Gluttony, and in what might be the most exciting set of the tournament, he went 3-1 with his Donkey Kong after losing Game 1 with Roy. Impressive as this was, the most hilarious, or maybe tragic, set, depending on your perspective, was a set versus Bloom. This is a bona fide Smash 4 matchup, and Hikaru's game plan reminded us of Smash 4 very well. In the 4 games not played on Final Destination, Hikaru landed 6 ding-dong kill confirms. As is often critical to the success of heavy mains, survivability is another thing that helped make this matchup winnable. Hikaru often lived to over 150%, and even once made it all the way up to 230. Meanwhile, Hikaru was taking Bloom stocks at an average of 76%, before the killing blow, mind you. The Donkey Kong Cinderella run was ultimately ended by T, whom Hikaru forced to switch off of Kazuya, and Gluttony, who barely prevented Hikaru from making a reverse 3-0 in their losers run back. Bloom Forever was the highest placing British player at 4th. Despite having his 3-set win streak over Gluttony finally snapped, Bloom snagged some big wins, namely Flo, Space, and Jake, all members of the PGRU version 3. An apparent weakness of his may have been found this weekend though, super heavies. Hikaru's DK proved its strength this weekend, and that loss alone wouldn't be enough of an indication, but there is more evidence. Bloom has previously lost to Sky-J Incineroar, as well as Sandro's Bowser, and in the first round of best of 5 sets at Ultimate Fighting Arena, French Bowser GoJester took him to a final game. Nevertheless, this was another strong tournament for Bloom, reaching top 4 again. He has yet to miss a top 8 in Europe this year and continues to prove himself as not just one of the region's best players, but one of the most consistent as well. Sisqui looked like one of the favourites to win this tournament going into top 8. Before that point, he had yet to drop a single game, defeating Pew, Homika and Tropt all in dominant fashion. But 56 seconds against T and Kazuya Mishima were enough to stop all of his momentum. A 0 to death and 2 suicide command grabs later, Sisqui was so shook he felt the need to switch to Snake. Still, only losing to first and second place at the tournament is certainly nothing to be ashamed of, especially when those two are both certainly top 10 players. Sisqui has proven a level of dominance over all but the world's top players. Now the question is, what will it take to push past that ceiling? Whether it comes from improvements to his trusty Dark Samus, or perhaps more time into his surprisingly nimble Snake. This was Jake's first out-of-country major, and he certainly didn't disappoint. After losing pretty early to Space, he clawed his way back all the way to 5th place, beating Nitox, Tropt, and even France's top Palutena, Rafflo, before losing to Bloom forever. Interestingly enough, except for his 3-0 victory versus Rafflo, every best of 5 set of his went exactly 4 games long. Rafflo suffered the displeasure of being double eliminated by Steve, losing to Tropt and Jake for 7th, taking a combined 0 games against these two players. Nevertheless, he did pick up some good wins along the way, including Neroz, Tariq, and Mr. R. Still, maybe the most impressive top 8 player isn't immediately obvious at plain sight. Space, after all, was part of the final 8 at last year's iteration as well, and has been one of the Netherlands' top reps since Ultimate's release. Looking strong with the Aegis, his new main, he beat players like Mezcal, Omika, and Jake, while only losing to the 2 best players in Europe. It's a strong performance from Space, but also fairly normal stuff by his standards. The 7th place finish ties his results from recent EU tournaments like Vienna Challengers Arena 2022 and Brussels Challenge. No, what made this so impressive was that he did it in combination with one of the biggest runs of UFA's Guilty Gear Strive bracket, finishing 5th out of 182 entrants with his trusty Mei, and taking out the event's top seed skill along the way. This top 8 was one of the most diverse in recent history, featuring players from 5 different countries and 3 different continents. Hikaru and T from Japan, Gluttony and Rafflo from France, Jake from the US, Sisqui from Spain, Space from the Netherlands, and Bloom Forever from the UK. The character pool was similarly diverse. Throughout top 8, a total of 13 different characters were played. Outside of top 8, there was actually 3 pretty amazing runs, 2 of which finished with an SPR of +5, and the other with an SPR of +4. Rachor, seed 107 of the tournament, managed a +4 SPR with a combined upset factor of +10. He did this by winning against Super Striker and GoJester, and only losing to 2 top 32 seeds, SBF and Longo. Meanwhile, 201st seed Bastard, at only his 2nd major tournament, managed to achieve an SPR of +5. His highest seeded upset came against British Samus Rambos, and he managed to accrue a total upset factor of +12 when everything was said and done. But by far the most impressive run was by Scores. He also had an SPR of +5, but his combined upset factor tells a bit of a different story. Not only did he make the single biggest upset of the tournament, beating Chag for an upset factor of 11, he would cobble together a few more upsets for a combined upset factor of +20 for the tournament, by far the weekend's highest. The distribution of big upsets at this tournament was fascinating. There were only 5 upsets of upset factor 5 or higher, with one of them being the aforementioned upset factor 11, and the rest being upset factor 5. Chag sadly suffered not only 1, but 2 big upsets this tournament, losing to both Scores and Nitox, while the French Pac-Man main Modzai lost to the Joker player, Artsniff. This tournament was something of a dream for low-tier enthusiasts. Not only did a nearly solo DK make top 3 at a major, but the other biggest run was made by a character that is definitely not on most people's radars, Toon Link, piloted by Scores. Additionally, one of the other biggest upsets was made by Lucas player Nitox. This tournament also somewhat confirms Tweak's theory.
A while back, I had a conversation with Jackal about like heavies. We're like talking about the best heavies, especially because he hates DK. Like I always, like my go-to response is always like, I think Bowser's the best heavy. He's like the most well-rounded, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then he hit me with something that really like changed my perspective. Who cares about being well-rounded? It's still Bowser. Like, why not just play DK and just like have like the advantage state and just like you know what I mean? Like why are you trying to have like a well-rounded package? Just like you're playing a heavy to like cheese people. Why not pick the character that's like you know, like going all out in like one category? Like, why would you be well-rounded?
As the meta evolves, characters with amazing punish games will be favoured as opposed to characters with amazing neutral. All the players in top 4 used characters who can pile up damage or even kill off of one neutral interaction, especially T and Hikaru with Kazuya and DK respectively. Last but not least, one of the most interesting stories of the tournament came from someone who went 0-2. As much as Smash Ultimate players complain about the game's meta, some other fighting games apparently have it worse. WaDi, renowned Dragon Ball FighterZ player and #1 seed for its event, at this tournament DQ'd to instead play, you guessed it right, Smash Bros. Ultimate. And although he did go 0-2, a talented player such as him could definitely make waves in our tournament scene, given a bit more practice and familiarity. Our breakdown of this week in Smash Ultimate is just beginning. Hit that subscribe button to stick with us for our recap of Port Priority 7, our deep dive into Tweak's historic losers run, and everything else from an incredibly busy upcoming month of Smash.